everyone, it's your local emergency manager, and today is the feast day of St. Laurence O'Toole. So St. Laurence O'Toole is actually a pretty interesting saint to me because there's about a 60% chance that I am a very distant descendant of St. Laurence O'Toole. I'm 60% sure that I'm a descendant of his brother on my grandma's side, so that's why he's so interesting to me. Obviously, he died about 800 years ago, so there is a very, very minute fraction of his DNA in my DNA if I were to prove that he is my ancestor. So, let's get into his story. So, St. Laurence O'Toole was born in County Kildare in Ireland in 1128. He was the youngest of 4 sons of King Murkertach O'Toole, and his mother was an Elburn princess. At the age of 10, Laurence was sent to Dermot MacMurrough as a hostage for his father, which I believe a hostage is just basically a servant. However, at one point, his father's loyalty to Dermot must have become suspect, as Laurence was imprisoned for some 2 years in extreme austerity and barely given enough to live on. Due to the intercession of the abbot of Glendalough, relations were restored between Dermot and Murkertach, Laurence's father. One result of this confinement was the strengthening of Laurence's wish to enter religious life. The story goes that when Murkertach arrived at Glendalough for Laurence, he stated that he would really like to have one of his sons be made a priest, at which Laurence laughed, as he had long thought of doing so. And Laurence ended up staying in Glendalough. So at the abbot of Glendalough, in time he rose to become the abbot of Glendalough at the age of 26 in 1154. Laurence was a religious reformer. He wished that the Irish Church would reflect the Catholic Church and strengthen the bond between the Irish Church and Rome. Laurence began a spiritual renewal program amongst the monks of the abbey, bringing the Gaelic Abbey of Glendalough in line with the Frankish abbeys of continental Europe. He invited the canons of St. Augustine to come and assist with the reform of the abbey, and he became a member of the Augustinian order himself. A great famine raged during the first 4 months of his administration, and robbers plagued his community. In the early 13th century, Laurence protected his community from the robbers through his solemn prayer, fasting, and miraculous curse. He was well regarded by both the community in Glendalough and its secular neighbors for his sanctity and charity to the poor. When he was 32, following the death of Archbishop Gregory in 1162, he was elected unanimously as Archbishop of Dublin, and he was consecrated the Archbishop of Armagh. He was the first Irishman to be appointed to the see of the town, then ruled by Danes and Norwegians. It is notable that his nomination was backed not only by the High King Rory O'Connor, King Dermot, who at the time was married to Laurence's sister, More, and the community of Glendalough, but also by the clergy and population of Dublin itself. He played a prominent part in the Irish Church reform movement in the 12th century, as well as rebuilding several parish churches and emphasizing the use of Gregorian chant. As Archbishop of Dublin, Laurence began a policy of church building and laid the foundation stone for the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity, now called Christ Church. To assist in the spiritual formation of the priests and the people of the diocese, Laurence invited the Augustinian monks to become part of the cathedral chapter of the Holy Trinity. In a city that was in the middle of an economic boom, Laurence, as Archbishop, was seen as the only one who stretched out his hand to care for the poor and the neglected. There was appalling poverty in the city at the time, and each day Laurence fed the poor of the city in his home. He also established care centers for the children who had been abandoned by their parents or who were orphaned in the city. Laurence frequently went to Glendalough for retreats. but he usually hid himself in a solitary cave at some distance from the monastery between a rock and a deep lake, which St. Kevin of Glendalough had used. So now it's time to talk about the Treaty of Windsor. So the Treaty of Windsor was a pact between O'Connor and Henry II, which acknowledged Henry's right to the lordship of Leinster, County Meath, and such areas then occupied by the Norman subjects. Laurence was able to get Henry to acknowledge O'Connor's right to the high kingship and to his lands. During the negotiations, Laurence was saying Mass at the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury when he was attacked by a madman. The man had heard of the Archbishop's reputation and had the idea of giving the church another martyr. He struck Laurence in the head before the altar with a club. Unlike Becket, O'Toole, though knocked to the ground, was able to recover and finish the Mass. So I didn't read this, but I heard that St. Laurence, after he was struck in the head with the club, he blessed some water that was given to him, and he used the water to clean his wounds, and that's how he recovered quickly and he was able to finish the Mass. So now it's time to talk about the last years and death of St. Laurence. So Archbishop Laurence left Ireland in 1179 to attend the Third Council of the Lateran in Rome, accompanied by 5 other bishops. From Alexander III, he received a papal bull confirming the rights and privileges to the See of Dublin. Alexander also named him a papal legate. On his return to Ireland, he kept up the peace of reform to such an extent as many as 150 clerics were withdrawn from their offices for various abuses and sent to Rome. So basically, he was a reformer. He found the bad people in the church and he told them to get out. Laurence was described as tall and graceful in figure. St. Laurence was known to wear a hair shirt. He never ate meat, and he fasted every Friday on bread and water. But when he entertained guests, he would give the guests whatever they needed, and he would drink water that was colored to look like wine so that he would not spoil their feast. Each Lent, he returned to Glendalough to make a 40-day retreat at St. Kevin's Cave on a high cliff in Lugduff Mountain over the upper lake. In 1180, he left Ireland for the last time, taking with him a son of O'Connor as a hostage to Henry. After he dropped off the servant, he went and stayed at the monastery of Abingdon, south of Oxford, and then he landed at the Le Treport at Normandy. So basically, he got a boat and landed in a port in Normandy at a cove named after him called Saint Laurent. It was at this point he fell ill and he was taken to the Abbey of Saint Victor in Eu, Normandy. I'm just going to say Eu because I looked up the correct pronunciation and it's like Normandy, and I don't really want to say Normandy. He landed in Normandy. He landed in Normandy. It was suggested that he should make his will, to which he replied, "God knows I have not a penny under the sun to leave anyone." His last thoughts were of his people in Dublin, and he said, "Alas, you poor foolish people, what will you do now? Who will take care of you in your trouble? Who will help you?" And he died at Eu Normandy on the 14th of November, 1180, and was buried there. He was canonized as a saint on December 11th, 1225, by Pope Honorius III. And St. Laurence O'Toole is the patron saint of the Archdiocese of Dublin. So that's the story of St. Laurence O'Toole. He may or may not be my great times 10 grand uncle. About 60% chance. I'm still proving that, working down the line, trying to prove it. I'm pretty sure, 60% sure. But if you like the video, like, subscribe, of course, and thank you so much for watching.